So welcome, and we are taking the customer retention this time around. That's the one we're taking in this session. Remember that we said earlier that this is more like a makeup class for the previous days, which we skipped. Now, um, that said, I think I just want to before we quite begin to go into details of this conversation. There's a question that I read. I think from one Anthony about that's from the service delivery excellence class that we just had. I think one Anthony was asking how do they avoid being I think being slapped or embarrassed by customers. Something in that question, something in that line. Okay, I think this particular session of the training is going to be addressing that, right? That's customer retention, where we're going to be handling customers' experience. Because I believe um, a customer will not just walk up and and just give that's slap a representative. Okay, I think somebody Cynthia or this Saint World. Please, what question did you ask in the previous class? You were saying I didn't answer your question, so please you can ask the question again and I will just reply that. But I was just making a reference to, I don't know which of the persons who asked that question was saying how do they avoid being slapped by a customer and the rest of that. So I was saying my response to that is this particular session of the training is going to be asking is going to be providing answer on that. Okay, since what you're saying about how are you going to be avoiding an angry customer? Okay, before we begin, okay, let me just answer that. Okay, like I said earlier, where we are here as representatives to provide service. In the first instance, we are not here to avoid customers. In fact, we want them to come, bring their baggages, right? That's why we are. If there's no customer in the first instance, our place as representative is invalid. There will be no place for us as representative. So first of all, let's cancel that opinion of avoiding customers. We're not avoiding. In fact, we want them to come. Now, but we want to have at the back of our mind that customers are people. People come with baggages. People come with a lot of experiences. People come with character issues or character flaws. So by understanding this, we now we have that mindset that we are relating with people. We're not relating with robots. So we're expecting different kind of behaviors from them, right? So based on that, we know how to relate with them as individuals, right? As individuals, and like someone we have decided to accept. Remember, these are customers. These are customers paying in the first instance. We're not employed to come and avoid them. We are employed to engage them and make their experiences awesome, right? That's what. So as when we begin to see them as individuals, we can begin to talk about building a relationship, a unique relationship with that specific customer to change practically, possibly maybe but to change their relationship or their experience with the brand. But first of all, it stems from the expectation. If you go back to that the last training, that's the last one that we just completed now, where we talked about the customer's expectation. Now the customer gets angry because of what? Unmet expectations. What are those expectations that were not met? That's where we now know how do we manage this. We just talked, we concluded all this. Possibly maybe if you joined late, maybe you did not partake through those sessions. So that's what we're saying. When we understand the customer's expectation, that we can begin to handle that. Now, that said, it brings us to that is this section or this level of the training, which is on managing that. Because we're going to now talk about how do we now manage that their experience. Let's say they've had a terrible experience from the services that was provided. Maybe you're not even the service, or we work in a team where we are rotating the duties. So you come morning shift and or someone who did night shift did a terrible job, and you're coming morning shift now and it's poured on you. Now, how do we work around that? How do we cope in such an environment, right? So now this brings us to the this session of the training that we're going to be talking about, which is on customer retention, right? When we begin to talk about customer retention, there's a reason why we're considering customer retention in the first instance. If we cannot be talking about retention in the first place where when if there are no issues or where we don't anticipate that there are going to be experience issues, right? So when we begin to have experience issues around, when customers begin to have experience negative experiences, it means that we as organization, the organization definitely is going to be planning towards retention. Then, as we as the service representatives, right, we also need this basic orientation about customer retention, and we can begin to work on that. Now this brings us to the retention training. Welcome. And in this particular session, we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence in customer service, customer experience, customer recovery, and customer retention. So that's the details of this particular training. So we're going to use emotional intelligence to understand or to understand a particular customer. Then we'll go ahead and talk about the customer's experience. If we want to use emotional intelligence to understand the customer, we'll begin to talk about the customer's experience. We can analyze that as the experience of the customer, know how we can work around it. We can begin to talk about recovering that customer. Because if they have a negative experience, if they were 100% in, then maybe some level of their loyalty is out already. They are beginning to consider which other person provides this kind of service that XYZ provides, which other organization provides what is doing what just is doing. So at the end of the day, they are beginning to look elsewhere, because why? They are having issues already, unresolved issues. So they're possibly they are 30% in, 70% out, or 50% in with one leg and the one's out. So of course, and they can just spot and move elsewhere. So that's where we begin to talk about recovery. Then we go ahead and conclude with customer retention on its own. So these are the 4 key things that we're going to be talking about in this training, customer retention management training. Okay, that said, now let's talk about emotional intelligence. Let's start with emotional intelligence in customer service. Now, what exactly are we doing with, like, what exactly, how does emotional intelligence come into customer service, right? Now, emotional intelligence on its own is the ability to recognize emotions, right? Discern between different feelings, label them correctly, right? In order to achieve a certain objective. So I'll take that again. That emotional intelligence in itself is our ability, right? As service representative, it is our own ability to recognize emotions, right? The customer's emotions. So when customers also, by based on our interaction, we already have recognized the emotions of the customer. Then we can begin to discern. We discern between the feelings, so we can label them appropriately. Now, when we're talking about discernment here, now, there are some people who give out mixed feelings. Some people who give out no feeling at all. They are indifferent. They just keep quiet. They give the energy they give out is just indifferent. We can for the inexperienced or those who are not trained. We can't be able to decipher what kind of experience or what kind of feeling or energy is this person giving out. So they're just indifferent. But in their mind, once they step out of this place, it's over. They are not coming back to this particular place again. There are people like that. They just say, that's just defined. That's the last time I will step my feet in that particular place. And they mean it. And that is all. So, but we don't want this kind of experiences, right? We don't want this kind of experiences for our customers. That's why that's why we're considering emotional intelligence, right? In labeling customers' emotions, or in recognizing customers' emotions and labeling their feelings properly well, so that we can adequately use it to achieve business objective. And what's our objective? The objective of customer service is practically customer retention. That is the objective of customer service, to retain customers. So if we cannot, so to retain customers, we require emotional intelligence so that we can understand our customers effectively, well, understand the experiences that they have had. Okay, now another dimension of emotional intelligence. Now, another aspect of emotional intelligence in customer service is so that we can that's the essence of considering it, is so that we can use it to guide the thoughts of the customer adequately. Now, what do we mean by guide the thought? It's not like we're here to start playing mind games with customer. No, that's not what we're talking about here. Practically, what we're saying is we're here to when a customer is already angry, so we're using emotional intelligence to guide the conversation so that we don't get the person even more infuriated in the first instance, right? So when the customer is angry already, or they have a terrible experience already. So we don't want to ask questions that will infuriate, or we don't want to say things that will infuriate the experience, or that will infuriate the customer more. So we want something that we're going to be doing that we can. So that's what we're talking about, guiding their thoughts. So we don't want to make the customer feel, oh, like, what exactly are these people doing here? Are they playing, or do they take me for granted, or those kind of thoughts? We don't want them flying to the mind of the customer. So we don't want them to walk away. Remember that we're saying the ultimate aim of customer service is customer retention. So that's that. Okay. That said, let's go ahead to talk about um, customers themselves. Consider that's when it comes to emotions. Considering angry and as well as irate customers. Of course, if you check, we're not discussing about happy customers. If we have happy customers, of course, there's all we just want is for them to practically be happy. So we just don't want to start considering that. That's not much of an issue for us. What we're considering is here about the angry customer and as well as the irate customers. How do we work around an angry and irate customer to converting them to becoming happy customers again? So first of all, who is an angry customer? Of course, these are customers who review their emotions, who communicate their emotions, and their emotions are there's a feeling of strong displeasure, of usually leading to an infuriated outburst, right? So communications from customers, once they begin to reveal or displeasures, feelings of displeasures or unsatisfaction, it means practically that the customer is unhappy and they're angry with whatever it is. Possibly maybe it's a disruption, a failure to deliver on a service, possibly maybe a salesperson was unable to deliver, and now they are heading straight to the office physically, and they are reaching out. Of course, they are the first person that are going to be reaching out to, is the customer service representative. So now it's going to be poured on you. Or take for instance, you finished at the somebody finished from night shift and did a terrible job, and you're coming in the morning, and this is just what you're getting. So now how do we? Of course, we're going to get to how we're going to be handling that. Then talk about irate customer. Now, the angry customer and the irate customer. In a nutshell, an irate customer is an advanced angry customer, right? The anger has multiplied now. That's what makes the customer an irate customer in the first. So they communicate a higher degree of upscaled anger and wrath. So at this time, it's a rage, right? They are very angry, and that's why you see there are some customers where we see we've had situations in the country where some customers even climb the counters. That's why in order to that's climb counters in order to express themselves, express their feeling of dissatisfaction, their feeling of resentment. Some customers have done that. Of course, it's against work policy because this time around they're now disrupting services. Of course, it's wrong, right? Right. So, but now we're talking about an irate customer. So but that particular type of customer is already angry, right? They are angry, and they at that stage, they are angry. In fact, they moved beyond being angry, and they become irate customers. So, is the for irate customers, they communicate a higher degree of displeasure. Okay, now we're going to be very much faster with this. Remember, all these are just makeup classes for the ones that was missed earlier in the week. Now, how do we then handle this category of customers? Now, remember the two people that we're considering, the two category of customers that we're considering now are the angry customer and the irate customer. So let's start with handling that angry customer. This customer who is now angry, right? So now, take for instance, they did a terrible job in the night shift, and you are here in the morning, and all of a sudden, the good morning or the person that walks in is like they're here for a fight. And what do you do as a representative? The first on the list you're going to be doing is just listen to the customer, pay close attention, pay attention to their emotions, right? That's what we talked about. Started off with emotional intelligence. So pay close attention. If you are dealing with if as a representative you are dealing with customers, and there are basic things that would that bring customers in contact with representatives. Either they are seeking new services or they are seeking solutions. They're seeking assistance or issue resolutions. So these are basic issues, right? These are the basic things that connect that there are new customers who are seeking to get um, make inquiries about the product or service of the organization, or they want you to guide them through, or they actually have issues that they want to resolve. So now, taking it for instance that these are people who want issues resolved. Now, they possibly maybe they were promised that this issue is going to be resolved in 24 hours, and this is 72 hours. Somebody else who promised them that 24 hours, or based on the company policy, 24 hours. And this is 72 hours. Now the customer is coming. You're not even the person who attended to this customer in the first instance. And they start out and they say, you, this, they lash out. You people are incompetent, you people are this, you people are rogues, you people are that. I can't take this anymore. In fact, I want to see the manager, I want to do this, I want to do that. They want to that in fact, no, they want to they want to feel that level of importance. And so it's not for you to at this stage as a representative, remember all that we have considered in the first instance. Because as a human being, one of the major things to do is a repulsive behavior, right? So, but as a representative, remember that these people are the ones, they're the reason why we're here in the first instance. So, we're not going to be responding in that manner, right? And besides, customers are for the company, customers are the boss practically. So the same way it is when your supervisor is going to a supervisor gets angry and they are saying a lot of things, and you just keep calm, right? You're not firing back, you're not showing that you yourself can talk, and so you just keep quiet, just listening. So that's the same way you have to treat the customer. So because right, the customer is all his boss. They don't actually that's the reason why we're here in the first instance. So we're going to exhibit the same level we're going to give them the same level of respect and attention that we did. So we're not going to avoid them. We're not going to give them attitude. We're not going to say, who is this one again? But like there's some kind of attitude that most people will give. But this is not the time to for character flaws or for attitudes or for some kind of non-verbal cues that makes them look like that demeans the customer. No, I'm not going to give out any of those negative vibes. We're going to ensure that at the end of the day, this customer is hurt. That's why they are here in the first instance. If they are not hurt, they will not be here like trying to cause chaos or trying to like try to express that emotions in the first instance, right? So we're just going to listen to the customer. We're going to pay attention to details, what they are saying, what they are not saying, right? So then, I remember as angry customers, whatever you say to that customer might infuriate them the more or will calm the situation. These are two key things that are very much evident. It will either calm, whatever you say may calm or might infuriate the whole situation or will aggravate the whole situation and it gets out of control. So now, second on the list, after you've listened to the customer and now they said a whole lot, told you how incompetent the organization is, how terrible, how this, how that. So one of the major things you can do, of course, it's ethical to always thank them for bringing this complaint to your attention and explain to them that you have not been the one that they've been communicating with, but you're going to take you're going to take the complaint, you are taking the complaint up now and ensure that the issue is resolved. Now, one of the major responses that you always get is, "Don't tag me. This, that. Fix it," and the rest of that. So this of course, these are practical real life experiences where you see tech and they abuse even the more. They tell you how terrible you are. Or they might even abuse. They say a lot of things. So in that instance, so we need to prepare our mind first of all that this is exactly what we're going to do, because these are human beings. These are not robots, right? They've been dissatisfied, and like don't know what experience that they have with the previous agent. So, but you remember that at the end of the day, when the issue is going, if it escalates, if it gets in, if it gets if it escalates and it's not properly handled and the supervisors get involved, they're not going to. Of course, they're going to still consider the other people who have interacted with that customers first. But you, who the customer have worked to, you are now part of the whole thing. So you also you don't want to drag yourself into the mess. So that's why you have to pay close attention to that. Then we'll go ahead to talk about restating the issue to ensure for clarity. Of course, in this instance where you want to restate the issue of course, might tell you, were you deaf before? Do you not hear what I was saying earlier? Or you just want you to say it again, things like that. They're going to say all those things to you. So you want to prepare your mind in the person's stance, of course, because the customer is angry now, but not all angry customers behave like this. We are talking on the extreme cases, right? Because this person, you're not the first person that they interact with, and you've said it to them in the first instance. But some people, they do transfer aggression. So if they transfer their aggression, just prepare your mind, take the aggression like that and sort their problem, let them just go. That's all. Then empathize with them, which is the fourth on the list. Empathize adequately with them. Help them to know that you feel how they feel. You feel how hurt they feel, right? Because at the end of the day, the customer is a human being. They are doing all this. Some of them at the end of the day might they will come back and apologize to you how they spoke rudely to you. That's one of the major things because they are just angry. They are not thinking straight at that time. So they might say a whole lot of things to you, so some may come back and apologize. Some will not just apologize. Some will, even when you have finished resolving the issue, will still abuse you on top of it and walk away. These are human beings. But the main thing that you know is that at the end of the day, they are still a customer of the organization and they are still doing business. That's the reason why we are there. If they move away and they stop doing business, there's a problem, there's an issue. Our relevance to the organization is already reducing and we don't want that. Okay, so that said, now outline the issue resolution, how you're going to solve the problem. So you just outline them, let them understand how the issue is going to be resolved and the timeline, of course, that it is going to be resolved, which is the next one that provide a timeline. So if it is 24 hours, now remember that it was 24 hours so that the previous representative told them. But now, before you begin to issue out a resolution timeline, find out why did the issue not get resolved in the first instance. The person who attended to it, why did they not resolve this issue in the first instance? If this issue is resolvable in 24 hours, why was it not resolved? All these things. If you can be able to make all these investigations handy, it makes it can help you build your case and you can talk to the customer and they will understand, okay, this was what was done. Oh, this was what was not done. Yeah, this is what is left to be done. So they know that it's not that they were taken for granted and the rest of that. So you carry them along. Then, because a lot of time has already been spent, just let them know that you're going to prioritize it. And this is 24 hours. Just tell them that, like this time around, you know that you told them 24 hours before, and but this time around, you are giving them your word that it's going to be resolved because you know that this time you are going to get it resolved. Now, remember that this is an angry customer. This is not just a normal inquiry. This is not just a normal inquiry that's for the first instance or a normal encounter. So this person is already angry, and you want to prioritize this issue and ensure that it's going to be resolved. So now, seventh on the list, ensure that you reach back to the customer. Now, if there's any development, carry them along. Carry that customer. If it is via email, let them know. Okay, this is what is currently ongoing, and the rest of that. Then, of course, uh, 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 okay, so when we're talking about the issue resolution timeline, that you have to state what has been done. Now, in the instance where, take for instance that this is more like a difficult customer, or this thing cannot be resolved, or this certain things that this thing is beyond what you can handle, or maybe of course maybe something certain things has gone wrong and you can't handle it anymore. What do you do in that instance? This is when you involve your supervisors, right? You don't just say anything to them, just ask them to hold on. You just take a walk from where you are, reach out to your supervisor. Then if there's a proper means of communication with your supervisor, you can just quickly send them a chat or send them a mail and notify them that you just sent them a message so they could just quickly take a look at it. Then, if you are moving the case directly from them or you're trying to get them involved, so the supervisor is involved directly in that, possibly you need their clearance or you need them to take on that particular task because it's now beyond you. Of course, they will now step in and handle that issue from there or pick up that customer from there. Now, I think that's we'll just say that practically for that brings us to a summary on how we can just handle angry customers. Now, for irate customers, how do we now handle this category of people? Right? How do we handle them? They work into the organization. So now for the I think was it Tony that who was asking that What if the customer intends wants to slap you and the rest of that? You're not just going to sit and allow them slap you. Of course, if they slap you, that's where the management of the comes in, right? That a customer does not give you the right to, abuse people, right? So that's that, but it's not your place to start fighting or to start a fight with the customer. You have your supervisor who is there, who is seeing everything. In the first instance, before it even degenerates, your supervisor will get involved. That's one of the major things. They're always sitting close there. Your supervisor is there. So immediately once the situation is out of hand, they take charge immediately, and so that the whole place does not get rowdy and you don't get in trouble as well. That's just the major thing that is there. So, but then in an instance where you are your own, in fact, for instance, that in a situation where you is just if one particular person who is you're functioning as the service representative, also the front desk and the rest of that. So handling all those roles together, and you're of course maybe you're reporting directly to someone else who is not directly supervising you. Maybe the that is a general manager, operations manager who is not more like a service rep supervisor. So in that instance, of course, the operations manager, most times this they have CCTVs, they see what's going on. Maybe they please get right, they calm down, they come straight to have to halt that particular situation. But as much as possible, for you as a representative, yours is to manage the situation until your supervisors come. But in an instance where there is no supervisor, there's nobody that's going to come. You're on your own to handle that situation. What do you do? That's what we're going to consider now. So now, an irate customer, what do we do? How do we handle this particular irate customer? Now, this irate customer, because they're angry, the irate customer is the advanced degree of the angry customer. So this time around, they're violent. They are saying a lot of things and the rest of that. So if for instance, if it is over the phone, they say a lot of some of them even threaten you. I will do this. I will, in fact, I will. A lot of that. I think I've listened to a conversation where a customer once said, "Our fire will do this, do that, 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 that," how they're going to burn down the whole place. So it's out of rage. It's out of serious rage because they were so angry. Some of them don't even mean what they are saying. It's just want you to feel bad. They want to say a lot of things to you so that they can scatter your day. But you don't want so with you need to have that at the back of your mind. So when they finish saying what they are saying, it's just in their pocket there. What you need to do is work on whatever it is that the issue is and resolve their problem. So how then do we handle this irate customer? Like I said, if you're just practically on your own and handling these issues, that is to attend to this irate customer all by yourself. Now, what do you do? Just one of them is that you have to be vigilant because that is in the case of violence. Then also, but you have to also practice active listening. So now, because this customer is irate, you don't want them to unleash level of violence. So while you're while you're trying to attend to this customer, also you are very much sensitive, right? Very much sensitive to their actions, so whatever things that they're going to be or whatever gimmick they're going to be pulling. So you want to be very much uh, expectant. So in case if it goes how you're going to respond to it. I'm not saying you should start a fight with them. So, but more important is to defend yourself, like so you don't get um wounded or whatever it is in the course of service. But one of the things they're going to be doing, as long as the person is not violent, just practice active listening, right? It's not there's no threat there, there's no danger. So just they're only angry and they're just saying hurtful things or they are saying terrible things to you. So just practice actively, listen carefully to what they have to say to you. When you listen, while you are listening to them, pay attention to the things that they are not saying. Because at this time, they're going to be adding both, they're going to be saying a lot of things. They will say a lot of things into their favor. So they will say things that even did not happen. So they will say all of them together. So it is your intuition that you're going to use to separate the chaff from the entire conversation. So you know if that is you know where the lie is coming and the rest of that and where they are trying to make themselves feel better. So at that instance, just go straight and resolve the issue. That's the main thing. First of all, just tell them just why they're having that, why you're listening to them. Don't interrupt them. Allow the person to keep saying whatever it is that they are saying, but just don't interrupt the person and don't engage. Don't engage like in words like war of words and the rest of that. Once you identify what the issue is, just quickly go and resolve that particular. That's just how to deal with this category of people. Resolve the issue that right, resolve whatever it is that has brought them here or that has made them angry. So at that instance, once the issue have been resolved, or if it is something you cannot resolve at that time, of course, you need to you will now find a way. Tell them that okay, you've heard what it is. See, this is exactly what the problem is, and this is the timeline with which it will get resolved. But this is what you have already done, right? You have started the process, but in less than 24 hours, that it will be done. You give them a call, right? No matter how angry that they are, of course, they will still have to follow the rules of the organization. But remember that this they are irate at this time. So now you're going to be prioritizing whatever issues or whatever challenge that they have and are going to be resolving them. But the rules here is that you have to remain calm. You do not have to interrupt them while they are having a conversation because if you want to say anything at that time, there's going to you don't want to even hear when you are sick. Don't even tell them sorry. You don't even apologize about anything. Don't even just listen. Listen attentively. That's just what they want you to do. And at the end of the day, resolve the issue. If you're apologizing or you say sorry, maybe you're telling the person, I'm so sorry, but you're telling sorry for yourself. And so they because they're angry and they will say a whole lot of things to you. So be prepared. Now, one of the major things that you're going to be doing is to reassure the person of commitment to resolving this issue. That's that reassurance. That's where it comes in. Instead of apologizing, just reassure them that this thing that you have brought it to your desk, they have now that you are now in charge of it, that you're going to resolve this issue. And you're telling them that in 24 hours that's going to be done. There's this level of assurance that you give to somebody who is raging, right? The rage will come. That's it. So you started this thing. You've identified what the problem is. Now you're giving them an assurance that this thing will be resolved in 24 hours. And you've already started. This is what you have done. This is what will be done. And at so time, it is going to be resolved. For in less than 24 hours, it is going to be resolved. There's no, except they are just not troublemakers. So in that instance, of course, that's where the management comes in. That's whoever it is, maybe the operations, who is leading the operations, they definitely step in to manage that situation. But in that instance, where of course sometimes maybe the particular one where you're posted to, you have to handle everything by yourself and resolve that issue. So, like I just said right now, when you identify the issue, address the issue, reassure them of your commitment to delivering on this particular thing that they have just brought to your attention, the rage is going to come. That's just one thing that has worked um, consistently. Of course, there are going to be exceptions. Like I just finished saying that some people are just natural troublemakers, and they remember that we're dealing with people here, so they just want to say, okay, yes, so that they can always brag about it that when they had this issue, they went to the branch, they did this, they changed it for them, they did a lot of things. They want to brag about it. So with the people like that, they are actually not after the solution. They're actually about creating a scene. That's just what they came there to do. So that's where emotional intelligence comes in. So you just these ones want to just create a scene. So but you just find a way to manage it. That's just what we're talking about here. Where intuition comes in. You're not just following one script like a robot. Their essence is you're being creative, you deploy creativity to issue resolution per time. Okay, that said, I think it brings us to the closure on this one, handling the irate customer um, themselves. That is handling irate customers and as well as handling angry customers. Okay, through emotional intelligence. Now, this brings us to the second portion that I want to talk about, which is on customer experience. Hmm. So from our emotional intelligence, we've come to understand, right, that the customer is already angry. The customer is raging. Like how do we now mind what do we do about this experience that the customer now has, right? Because okay, so it brings us in this module, we're going to be talking about that customer's experience. So we'll also talk about how do we now measure this customer's experience? How do we even get to understand why their experience or why they had such experience, right? So the questions that we need to ask to understand why in the first instance. Then we'll go ahead to talk about the evidence of good customer experience, then the steps to improve customer experience. That said, let's go ahead quickly to talk about customer experience. So it's customer experience in a nutshell is an interaction of a, is an interaction is an interaction between a brand and the customer. So how a brand, that's the interaction or the experience that is generated between the interaction of a customer and a brand is what we call customer experience. So that's experience or that interaction between a brand and the customer is what customer experience in a nutshell. And this forms through it could be over a period of time or it could be through the lifespan of the business relationship of that customer, right? Please, your questions always stay write down, note your questions. We're going to be taking them towards the tail end of the training. We'll take it at the end of the day, at the end of this session of the training. We'll take all the questions together, please, and I need it to come in handy. Okay, now let's go on to still talking on customer experience. So now, customer experience in secondly, that's trying to give another aspect or another perspective of what customer experience is all about. Customer experience is the overall impression that the customer now has, the overall impression that has been created in the mind of the customer, right? That overall impression of a brand, right? That is what customer experience is. So their experience builds over time based on their impression, based on the impressions that they've had. And impressions will stem from the service representatives, from the services that are offered, or the products itself that are offered. So these are and even the processes and the systems, all these things are where the impressions will stem from, right? I said the impressions will stem from the representatives, will form from the products, the services, the systems in place, the systems to customer service or the systems to product and service delivery, right? All this will form the customer's experience, right? All these are what forms customer's experience. So I think that said, let's go ahead into the next one. Okay, so now how then do we measure this experience of a customer? Of course, one of the major ways is through surveys. From time to time, though technology these days, technology has improved the measurement of customer experience in a very great magnitude. So such that if the customers themselves are served through technology, of course, the same technology is leveraged to gather their experience. Then there's some instances where even though technologies are deployed, of course, calls sometimes the retention officers are prompted or at times are brought out to reach out to customers, call customers, practically to thank customer for patronizing or for being a part of the organization, and also get a feedback. That's another form of survey where you call a customer, ask basic questions that must have been outlined out by the management based on the feedback they intend to gather. So at that time, um, they use the survey questionnaires to gather all this information from the customers. So firsthand, and oftentimes these calls are recorded, right, for quality and for compliance sake. Okay, let's go ahead to the second one. How still on how the customer's experience can be measured. Of course, one of the evident ways is through churn rates. Churn rate, what do we mean by churn rate? That's customer churn rate. So the rate with which customers come and go. So if customers come and remain with the organization, it means their experiences are great, right? But if customers come and they just walk away, they don't come back, they don't repeat business, they don't repeat their patronage to the organization, something is wrong somewhere. As long as there's an opportunity for them to repeat their purchase or to repeat their patronage. And if they don't repeat, then something is wrong. Why are they not buying? Where else do they go to, right? So this is what sometimes this is what your management begin to discuss. So, but as a representative, we don't want it to be part of our own fault, right? Why we have a higher churn rate of customers. It will practically mean that our roles there are practically useless. So we don't want such a situation. We want a situation where we can bring down the churn rates of customers. So when customers come in, they don't go. Remember, as representatives, it's imperative that we know that we are more like gatekeepers, right? We want customers to walk in. We don't want them to walk away. When they come, we want them to stay. We don't want them to go. That's it. We want them to be happily to stay happily with the organization and to continuously patronize us. So that's what we want them to do. Then exploring customer journey analytics. Of course, this is what the management will always do, but it's important that as representative that we know when we hear words like this, we know what it means. So of course, for instance, if this practically means where technologies are deployed, right, to managing the how customers deal with the organization. Take for instance, where they have to search if it's an e-commerce company, where they have to search they have to add to carts, from add to carts, or maybe make inquiries, reach out to the CS section, right, still from that particular from the product that's from that's a product display um, online. So where they have to reach out to the CS or go ahead, add it to carts, make purchases. So at these particular junctures, so the management is able to deduce customers having issues, maybe at the from the place of add to cart, they're unable to proceed to payment. Possibly, maybe we have a lot of people who, after adding to carts, they are not making payments. So we want to find out. Of course, that's where management comes in. So we're not giving so much details about this. At the end of the day, management know how they get this done. So, but we don't just want to be novice when we're hearing conversations around customer journey analytics and the rest of that. Okay, now let's go ahead to talk about the next one, first on the list in measuring customer experience, which is reviewing customer satisfaction scores. Now, this customer satisfaction scores is where customers score you or rate their experience with you who are representative, right? So as representatives, when we finish attending to customers, they rate what we do, right? As retention persons, as retention customer retention persons. Of course, sometimes when we even we make those calls, we want to ask them, okay, please, can you just rate our services thus far, or rate my service or my interaction with you thus far, and they can rate it. Possibly, it might be on a scale of 1 to 10, or it might be on a scale of 1 to 5. It all depends on the skill the organization decides to use. Okay, that said, and finally, of course, some organizations use support tickets to measure customer experiences. So based from the support tickets that they get, there are ways where customer experiences can be measured from the support tickets. Of course, high volume of support tickets would definitely mean that customers are having a lot of issues, right? But with their low volume of support tickets, it means that there are less issues on the platform and customers are having a greater experience. They're having a greater experience. But take for instance, what will be having more like, let's say, 2,500 support tickets daily. And we've been having it all through September, right? And just in this first week of October, we've just had over 10,000 support tickets. And it's not like we are doing, it's not like there was a promo. Of course, if there's a promo, it will definitely cause a spike in the support tickets. Or if there was an ad, let's say maybe there was an ad that went out, it's going to cause a spike in the support ticket. Now, there's no ad, there's no promo, there's just no unusual activity, right? That must have caused a spike in the support ticket, possibly. But let's say that there was a downtime, right? That people had issues, or maybe there was a downtime and there was a glitch, or there was a downtime, or there was a glitch in the payment, such that maybe a lot of transaction was not completed successfully, or people made payments and we can't find their payment. The accounting team cannot find their payment, and they themselves are saying that they've been debited. So at the end of the day, there's a whole lot of everybody saying payment, 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 and a lot of issues. That's when it comes to payment. There are people who are having issues, possibly maybe they're having issues trying to connect to their account or manage their account and the rest of that. So there could be a lot of issues at the end of the day. But what we are saying in essence is these are top 5 ways that we just listed out on how customer experiences can be measured or be measured by your organization. So whichever one it is, at least you have a good understanding of or you have an understanding that customer experiences can be measured in this way. So now, how then, as representative, now that we've understood about that, how do we question? What questioning? There's questioning to understand about details about the customer's experience. Why did they go through what they went through? Some of the questions that we could ask or that can be included in surveys. So when these surveys are handed to you, right? Sometimes they could include questions, and some of the questions that they could include is what did the customer like, right? So it is for you to now find out what did the customer like about the brand, what do they like, what have you been doing right, what have we got right with them, what do they like, or what would they want us to continue doing, right? That's what they like. So now, then, what do they not like? What would they want us to discontinue? What would they want us to stop, right? So these are some feedbacks that we will get from the customers. Oftentimes, when we place the call across to customers to find out what exactly did they like and what exactly did they not like, right? Another one to ask is what did the customer want us like? Why did the customer stop doing business in the first instance? Take that for dormant accounts or for accounts that are not have not been or that have not been in use, possibly maybe let's say for 3 months now or for 6 months now, and we've been handed over the calls as a retention person to reactivate this account. Reach out to this customer, reactivate this account back, and want this account active again. So now these are questions we are going to be finding out. Why did this stop in the first instance? So we know if from understanding why they stopped, we can know what the issue was when that if it was resolved, so we can go ahead and investigate and return back that customer to the organization. Then another question on the list is what is the customer's that is category, right? When we begin to classify customers and the rest of that as the persona of the customer, we can properly profile the customer and know how we can handle such customers because all customers are not the same, even though they practically help the organization make revenue or make profits. So, but all customers are not in the same category. Okay, then we'll go ahead to another of the question is what suggestion and feedback would the customer want to give to us, so such that it's more important. And sometimes customers love it when they are asked such questions like this, right? Where we'll put a call across to them to find out, okay, what would they like us to improve on? So this makes them feel, oh, my voice can be heard, right? So I'm valued. So this, from time to time, these are some of the questions that you see on the survey that will be handed to you as a retention person, customer retention officer. So very much important that we note that. So now this brings us to the next thing I want to talk about, which is the evidence of good customer experience. So now with evidence of good customer experience. Now, these are things that will help us understand that a customer is already having a good experience for all that we've said thus far. I don't need to elaborate so much on this because it's obvious. We can even deduce that, okay, a customer is having great experience. And when we say a customer is not having a great experience, remember we just talked about an angry customer and an irate customer. So if they are not even in the angry or irate customer, it means practically they will be having they are having a good experience. But there are some customers they're just in between, they're just there, they are never angry and they can never be irate. They are just there. You provide a great service, they are just there. You don't provide a great service, they are just there. They're just there. They will not say anything, but until when they are fed up, they are fed up. That is the end. They will never use that service. They will never use that brand again. So there are category of people like that. That's the individuality of people, right? They they barely complain. They don't even say anything. And sometimes even the high classical customers often fall in this category. They barely complain. They barely complain. And by the time once they make their decision, it is final. You getting back those customers a lot of the auction will have to make certain moves or will have to make certain shifts to ensure that these people come back again. Oftentimes it comes from a lot of incentives that can be given to ensure that these people come back. Okay, that said, let's go ahead to talk about the evidence of good customer service. Of course, when we keep having, so as organization, as representative, we know that, oh, we are having new customers coming in. That's an indication that we are doing well, right? That our customers are having good experience. That might not just necessarily be that, or that's because they're having a great experience. It might just be a very good PR from the organization. It might just be a social media team are just doing excellent, that they're doing an excellent job. But one of the major things that we want is that we are having a repeat. Once we are having repeat businesses, it means that's an evidence that as long as we're having repeat businesses, these people are having good experience. But that's not a guarantee. That's not 100% guarantee. Most of us have used network and data service providers who, of course, let's say in February, maybe there was some like some few days it was WAP service. Then it improved, it flopped again, it improved, it flopped again. It's still in the works, right? But we're just there. Sometimes maybe because we are just there because we've not found a better alternative, or because maybe we have some incentive that has kept us. Of course, that's where loyalty comes in, because we're going to talk about the customer loyalty, where so we have some incentives that has kept us in the first instance. So those are that. Then let's just quickly run, please. We barely have time. So um, the next one talks about, of course, building brand loyalty, positive reviews and appraisals and feedbacks that is from other people. Once there are positive reviews, we're getting positive reviews. Maybe you go on maybe if it's an app, we have an app, and on the store we're having positive reviews. On our website we're having positive reviews and the rest of that. That's a way of that we're doing great as representatives. Then we'll talk about increased customer retention. In the first instance, our customers are retained, as I said earlier. Repeat businesses, we're having them repeat again. They are repeating their patronage, but we're having them as one of where we have the business is supposed to be like a repeat. So then something is wrong. Why are they just doing one of them? If they're doing one of them, we're not providing good services as representatives. Okay, that said, let's go ahead to still on. Okay, I'm thinking the last one. Let me take the last one on that evidence of good customer experience, brand advocacy, referral and recommendation. We've discussed this earlier in the service delivery excellence, so I'm not going to take that again. Let's just skip that. Let's talk about now the steps that we can take to improve a customer's experience in the first instance. So, what steps could we take to improve a customer's experience? Now, a customer who have had issues or terrible experience, possibly maybe with um, the other representatives, maybe in the other shifts, before they come to you. So now, what steps can you take as a representative? If the bulk has not stopped at your own desk, what do you do to ensure that this experience is improved on? It does not further degenerate. Now, one of the things that you can do is to understand that customer. That's why we've been saying attention to details, practice actively. By the time you listen attentively, right, you listen to a customer. One of the major things that you are going to be deducing is the fact that you are going to understand this customer. So when we understand someone, then we can take steps. You can take steps to what that is to building a better relationship with them. Then, secondly, is to create an emotional connection, right? You want to create a connection. That's what I was saying earlier about that irate customer. Reassurance. We want to reassure them that we are with them. We are for them. We are here to help them, to serve them. We are here to ensure that they have a better experience, right? That's exactly what this place comes in. That it comes in handy. First step that we talked about, one of the steps that we talked about is about understanding the customer. Another step that can be taken is to create an emotional connection with the customer. Then another step that can also be taken is to capture real-time information. That's feedback from the customer, to get feedbacks. If we can get real-time feedbacks that can be acted on ASAP, then it means that we can improve on this customer's experience as well. Then finally, we can also talk about measuring the deliverables. More like, okay, this, if we have said that we're going to be delivering in 24 hours, how consistently as a representative do you meet your turnaround time? Right? That's what we're saying here. How consistently do you meet the turnaround time for that's a turnaround time for that has been marked by your organization. So this is very much important. And that said, it brings us to the close of this particular section. So in this place, we've talked about two key things, two key subjects in this section of the training. Remember, we started off in this part of the training with the emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence in customer service, using it to deduce or to understand the feeling of to understand and practically label the feeling of the customer, so that we can achieve certain business objective, which is customer retention. Now, secondly, we talked about we just concluded about the customer's experience. Now, I want us to move on to the next one, the third one, which is on customer recovery. So from the emotional intelligence, we've talked about the customer's experience. Let's now talk about how then do we recover this customer that we have discovered about their experience. So now how then do we this customer who is like a 50 like a 50-50 in, 50 out. Like they have one leg in, one leg out. They're already looking at trying to consider other alternative to the services. So how do we recover this customer and recover? When we're talking about customer recovery here, we're talking about their loyalty recovery. How do we recover back? How do we recover back their loyalty to the brand? That's what we're saying here in essence. So in this place, we're going to be considering the customer recovery and why should we even care in the first instance, basic customer recovery questions that could be asked, steps to customer recovery, then saying no effectively to a customer. How do we say no to a customer? Because sometimes customers can make requests that is beyond our capacity as representatives. How do we handle such situation or such scenario at that time? Then finally, we're going to be talking about creating quality impression in the mind of the customer. Okay, that said, um, customer recovery practically is the series of action that we implement as representative in order to win back a customer, in order to convert a dissatisfied customer to a loyal customer again. So I think that's said in a nutshell that customer recovery or loyalty recovery are just the steps we intend to take, the actions we intend to take, right? In response to either a service failure, which is aimed at converting back that customer, earning back their loyalty, the loyalty of that dissatisfied customer. How do we earn back that dissatisfied customer's loyalty again? So any step that we take forms the customer recovery approach, right? And the message around customer recovery are just like we can summarize them in these three key points that we care. We care about them. We care about them as representatives, as the brand, as organization. We care about them. So you as a representative, you care about them. Then as an organization, we care about them. Then secondly, that we understand how they feel with regards to the disruption or that they faced, or the service failure, or the how they were underserved, right? Or how they were treated how they were poorly treated. Let's just leave it at that. So this which is the second one. Then thirdly, that they can trust us to improve on this or to fix the issue, right? So once these are the key messages that always form the recovery message, right? That we care, that is one, we understand how they feel. Two, and thirdly, that they can trust us to improve on their experience or to resolve the issue at hand. That's what we are saying here. Then it takes us to questions that can help us understand that is about the customer's recovery process. Now, to correct wrong impression. Now, why do we even do customer recovery in the first instance, right? Why should we bother about customer recovery? As representative, we need to understand this. I've said this earlier that if they're not customers, there will be no need for representative in the first instance, should which is a priority for us. That if once we have customers, then our places are secure, right? So it means that the wrong impression. One of the major reasons why we are there as customer retention people is to correct the wrong impression. Now, because for every experience a customer gets, they have an impression of the brand. An impression of the brand is created. Now, if they've had a a positive impression thus far, they've had positive experiences, it means they've been having great impressions of the brand. The very day they experience a negative, they have a negative experience. Okay, just say it's one of those things. It's just one of those days. Maybe you could just give them so and experience it again and again. It becomes what is going on. This is not how I know these people to be. Right? The impressions are beginning to change. So that's what we're talking about. So customer recovery aims to correct that impression. So aims to correct that impression, correct the impression that the cost that we that's the service failure or the disruption that they noticed. That's not who we are. That's not how we are. That's not how we do things. But these are things that play out even on the cost of service delivery. But we are committed to what? Improving that impression, to changing that impression, right? That's what we're talking about here. That's what customer recovery is all about. Then, customer recovery is to prevent churn. It's to prevent the customer from walking away, from moving away. Okay, since these people are not serious, I should just go elsewhere. No, that's not what we want them to stay. So, customer recovery is about bringing back that customer. Then, thirdly, we'll talk about to improve the customers. That's the business relationship between the customer and the brand. That's what customer recovery does to improve that relationship. Because before they go, sometimes that's what I was saying about there are some customers they're just there, they will not say anything, but by the time they make their decision, it is done. It's done. They are in fact they are done and they're not coming back. That's it. So for them to get be recovered back, certain things have to be done for them to come back to the organization. But that's that. For some who will readily air their views because that the angry customers sometimes they are most times those ones are even easy to because they're always telling you, they're always in your face trying to tell you, they're always seeking impression all the time. So it's easy to even manage such customers and resolve whatever issues there are with them. Okay, now let's go ahead to talk about the basic customer recovery questions that could be asked to help us, who are the recovery or the retention officers, understand how to deal with them. Okay, now, what can we do to regain your confidence, right? So, because now, this if someone had asked you such a question, it means they have to be some level of relationship, right? If somebody's asking, maybe if let's say we have a network service provider, and maybe we've been using, let's say we've been using, let's say Green Network with us, or we've been using, no, let's say we've been using Purple Network, right? Purple Data Network, and Purple Data Network has been providing um, um, good service all along, and all of a sudden it gets so bad, 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 bad. Like consecutively, like for the past 3 months, I've been subscribing and just been wasting, wasting, wasting. So I just moved. I just said, I'm done. I cannot continue to be spending. In fact, I cannot continue like that. So what do we now do? How do we gain back your confidence? Right? There was one certain time, one in recent time, that a popular influencer came out to just, and people were saying, this influencer like this, he does not, it's not for trouble, does not like for him to have done something like this, for him to have called out this network data service provider, it means that this person, like they really must have messed up so big time. So right, so in that instance, reaching out to this person as retention officers, one of the questions that of course are part of the inquiry that we're going to be making would include, how can we regain your confidence, right? Let them tell us how we can regain their confidence. So, like, what can we do to regain? Of course, this oftentimes these are high net worth customers, right? How do we regain back your confidence? Let them tell us. And with it, by the time we have this same thing, maybe let's say from the survey that we did, we contacted, let's say, 1,000. And if we contacted 1,000 people and they are saying, at least we have over 40% saying this, over 400 people saying one particular thing as a way of regaining back their confidence. It means if we provide this feedback, of course, this is going to provide that's the feedback that we're providing back to the organization as retention officers. So now, when we're providing this feedback, this one is definitely going to work on them, because you have a huge number of people who are requesting this. So that's that. Then another question, one of the questions on the list that could be asked is also, how and when would you like this thing to be done, right? These are, of course, these are high network customers who are asking questions to understand how they want it done. So, how do we want to regain your confidence? How and when do you like this thing to be done, right? What's to regain that your confidence? Then we'll go ahead to talk about alternatives and competitions, of course, that they are currently using. Some of them may not tell you, right? There are sometimes we want to ask about, because but these things help us as representative or as retention officers to understudy that what the customer practically wants. So when they moved from us, where did they go to? Right? What are they currently using? Which one are they using now? But some of them will even tell you freely, hey, you people are just doing anyhow. In fact, I'm even using this for right now. So in order to prepare you very well as a representative, they will tell it to you. While some are reserved, they will not tell you. So for those who tell you, that's information, right? So we'll just go and understand what the competition is doing, right? Then we can go ahead and also advise the option on what we do. As retention officers, these are what we're doing. Then we'll go ahead to talk about what are the better ways of That's what are they doing better than we're not doing? Of course, these are things that we can deduce by ourselves. And if they will patronize again, of course, if we are able to get their confidence back, they would want to patronize us again. Now, that said, initiating the recovery approach. Now, how do we begin to initiate the recovery approach? We're going to first of all apologize. We're going to apologize for the experience that they had that was not great. Then we're going to review all that we have just discussed about with the customer over the telephone. Then we're going to fix it. Then we're going to follow up, reach out to them, and ensure that, oh, this we've resolved the issue. Hope you tried it out. So we don't say, I'm no longer trying anything else. And so, but the persistence in it, right, will help them come back and use it and try it out and see if we're telling. So we'll then have persistence as recovery officers, telling them about what we've done thus far. Let them come back and use that account. Because it's we've been given this account to reactivate back this account. This is what it is. So as it's given to you is a task for you to win back this customer. So these are ways that we can help them, that we can win back this customer. And when we have won them, we document properly what the issue was, what we did right. Then at the end of the day, that we won. As retention officers, we brought them back to the organization. So these are 5 key steps to recovering that customer. So when we are given a task as retention people, right, to win back these customers or to reactivate a dormant account. So these are the things that we just discussed about. Okay, that said, now coming to the issues before we summarize in this particular section, coming to the issue of managing no or saying no to a customer is very much important. So we say no rightly, right? In a way that the customer does not see, are you sure that this can do what I want them to do and the rest of that? We can say no, we can say no in such a way that yes, the customer will still remain with us, but we don't want to say no in such a way that they will walk away. So based on their request. So now when customers are making some requests, possibly maybe it's outrageous or beyond what we do, if it's not within the company policy or it's against the company policy or based on whatever it is that the customer is asking. So of course we're using intuition, we're using our discretion. At the same time, we're not robots in the first instance. Okay, so now one of the things that we're going to do, going to first of all, based on the request, we want to ask for clarification. To understand that request, don't assume that you've understood it. But the customer might say something, and you assume that you've understood what the customer is saying in the first instance, but we didn't, right? So as retention officers, right, we need to understand what the customer is saying by doing what? Asking for more clarification, asking questions, so we understand them very well. When we've understood the customer well, then we can go ahead to provide our own honest response. So now, secondly, is what we are going to be honest enough to explain to that customer what we can do and what we cannot do. It is far better than telling a customer, yes, I will do it. Yes, you are saying yes, yes, yes. And at the end of the day, you did not do anything. It's going to be much more. So but it's better that we're much honest and tell them this is what I can do, right? Versus what by saying, no, we don't do it here. This is not what we do here, or that's not how we do it here. The rest is that. So be honest enough to tell them what you can do or what we do here or what the company policy allows for, right? So that's what we're saying. Then, of course, we're going to use positive language. We're talking about positive language and positive expression here. We're optimistic, right? We want to that sense of optimism, then and as well as that positive energy, not like no, this is not what we do here, and rest of that. So at the end of the day, we want to remain positive. So even if they have other requests, they can still talk to us. So even maybe if this particular request is not within the company policy, it's not something that we can do for them, right? But the things that we can do for them, we let them know what we can do and what is within the ambit of the company policy. Okay, then fourth on the list is to offer alternatives, right? So if customer have requested for XYZ and XYZ is not within the policy or it's not within what can be done, then is ABC within the policy? If ABC is readily available and ABC is an alternative, so what we'll do as retention officers is to offer ABC. Say, okay, XYZ is not readily available, but ABC is available. They are still the same thing. So we see this a lot. Practical places where we see this happen are in malls, where in shopping centers, where we go to buy a particular product, and a representative is standing right there to you and saying, okay, you're looking for this particular one, or you're looking for this dairy product, but they're not readily available. We have a substitute that is just as good as that one, or it's even better than that one. So they sell it to you in such a way that at the end of the day, you forget about the one that you've come to pick, and you're going for the alternative. So as retention person, that's what they are doing practically there. It's retention. They're trying to retain that particular. So you don't just walk away and look for the next more to go and buy, right? What the retention officer practically did there is to ensure that they talk you into buying an alternative product that is as good as the one that you've been using. Of course, they have a very good understanding about similar products that are there. Because if for instance I'm a customer and and they talk me into buying a one that is less of the standard of the one I was buying before, I won't come back again because I'll feel that I was betrayed because I trusted that particular retention person too when they told me that. So as retention persons, that's what we're saying. You will be honest enough to help them understand. Okay, this particular one is similar to this, even if they are slightly more expensive or they are slightly below the price, but let them know that it's still the same thing. They could you can ask them to even compare the that's possibly maybe if they are, let's say they are dairy products, and you say okay, you can compare the contents, the constraints of the products, that's this versus this, and they see that at the end of the day that there's no difference, right? So at the end of the day they go ahead to purchase that, and it will make no difference while that it's just still the same thing, the same great experience that they had before. They will continue to have them even while they use the similar alternative. Then of course from time to time, from in that conversation, they get to know why you're making such reference to them. Okay, that said, please let's run. We're talking about creating quality impression. Now, creating quality impression as customer retention officers, one of the things that we do, of course, we give gifts, perks, and the rest of that to ensure that customers are happy. We've gone to places where maybe we patronized and we're giving some perks in order to create a great impression. Take for instance, we after maybe patronized and they gave you something, they give you a gift, maybe like a diary, a pen, maybe let's say a key holder. So these are small gifts, and at the end of the day, they created some level of impression, like saying thank you for patronizing us. This here's a gift for you, and so that's more like a retention. And so these are things that you're going to be doing more like so we're going to be giving out small gifts, then send a thank you notes, of course, if it is via email, messages and the rest of that. Going to be sending thank you notes. That then if it's of course if they are like a working store, we're saying thank you to them for patronizing us. We're appreciating them and appreciating their feedbacks. When they give us feedbacks, we thank them for their feedback. Then offers, of course, this is where options come in when they offer up bonuses and the rest of that, special packages and the rest to those customers. So these things create positive impressions for customers. So as retention officers, this makes us even better retention officers. We can tell our supervisors, okay, we think that these things can be done to improve the customer's experience or to improve our customer recovery and responsibility. Okay, that said, because we are running out of time, so let's quickly move ahead to the fourth and the last part, which is customer retention. So now discussing that customer retention, all that we've been saying, all form part of that customer retention, right? So let's just talk about customer retention in itself. Now, customer retention in itself, like we said earlier, that they are planned activities that enable the customers stay, right? All that we will do that will make the customer stay with us. That's what customer retention is doing. So as retention officers, whatever whatever we do, or all we are expected to do is to take actions or to take actions or engage in hold engagements that would make our customers stay in the first instance, stay with the brand, improve their experience, improve their patronage, increase their spending, more like cross-selling and upselling. From the examples that I just gave, at least it's clear now. Then customer retention also is deliberately designed to connect with customers emotionally, such that they can it rubs off on them and they see themselves as part of the brand. So that's what customer retention does. Customer retention aims to connect with the customers and make them see themselves as part of the brand. Okay, the goals of customer retention. Customer retention in itself, the goals that it aims to achieve, or the objectives of customer retention, is to provide value, to help customers feel more valued, right? That they are valued. It's not just that their money is valued, right? It's not like we say, oh, well, we value the money that you bring in, or we value the fact that you're doing business with us, we value the fact that you're patronizing us. No, that's not what we value you, who are the customer, right? You're the customer, we value you. We value you. Yes, we value your business with us, but we value you. So now, how do we do that? Remember, we talked about the experiences, how we handle them in the first instance. That's customer handling processes. All those ones are what practically say. It's not just what we are saying, but it's not by what we say. Of course, what we say also matters, but our actions. So both what we say and what we do all forms how the customer feels valued, right? By the brand. Okay, then we'll move on to talk about the second one, about the objectives of customer retention. It's ensures that the customers are willing to make more purchases. So if we have customers, or if our customers are retained, of course they make more purchases, right? They make repeated purchases, they make repeat patronages from the organization. So from time to time they still patronize us and not just going elsewhere. Then of course prioritizing. So customer retention aims to prioritize, or customer experience, not customer experience on its own, prioritizes the experience and the satisfaction of customers. So, on the list of what customer retention goals are all about, or objectives are all about, is about ensuring that customers have great experiences and they are satisfied when they patronize the organization. So, this will in turn promote goodwill, the goodwill of customers towards the brand. Okay, now, how then, how then, these are some of the things that we need to know, because if customers themselves are like, some facts about customer retention are very much important, because now, from the things that we've said, we've come to understand that some customers, they will not say anything, they will just walk away. So, but customer retention will help us ensure the fact that these people, even though this was both the ones that say and the ones that do not say anything, they will still stay with the organization. Okay. For the purpose of time, let's just quickly move on to the last slide, which talks about ways that we can improve customer retention. As retention officers, in what ways can we improve what we do for the organization? Now, one of the things to do is always to find out what the customers want, like we talked about in that survey. So it's part of the surveys where we find out what they want, and also we verify requests from customers. Then we don't force customers needs on them. Maybe let's say we customer what the customer what customers want versus what they need. We just advise them on the roadmap, allow them make decisions. So what we're saying in essence is we allow customers to make their own decisions themselves, even when we have provided advisories to them. Then finally, we're going to be reviewing complaints. We'll review their complaints, and as well as we also receive compliments where they give us one. So this brings us to a summary. This brings the entire summary of ways we can improve customer retention. We said was to find out what the customer wants. Then we also verify their requests before we process them. We allow customers make their own decisions. Then at the end of the day, of not just allowing them making their own, but make advised and informed decisions. More importantly, there, please. Then finally, of course, we'll have to review their complaints to understand what we've been doing right, so we can continuously do that. Which brings us to a close on all that we've spoken thus far, right? So in this training, we've talked about that's in training on customer retention management. We've talked about the customer's experience, right? We've talked about experience management through that is, we've talked about we talked about the emotional intelligence, trying to use emotional intelligence to deduce secondly the customer's experience. Then we now went ahead to talk about how then, based from the experiences that we've had, how then do we manage the customers, how then do we recover this customer. So we discussed also customer recovery, and finally we've talked about customer retention. That's understanding that is customer retention in a nutshell. So this brings us to a close from the four key subjects that we just talked about right now within the app. So at this time, I would want to take questions right away. So do you have questions just for at least in the next 5 minutes before the final class begins? So do you have any questions that you want me to answer at this time? So at least I want to just take one or two, three questions thus far. So any questions, just drop them in the comment section, and I'll just take them right away. So questions want to go, please let them comment right now. Um, while I just do a recap of all that we've said thus far. So if there are no questions in the next 2 minutes or in the next 30 seconds to 1 minute, I'm going to be, of course, rounding up the class and ending the session so we can prepare for the final one. Remember, we just all that we are supposed to do all through this week. We've just done them in one day. Okay. Then says how do we answer customers with language barriers? Okay. Um, that's a great one. Okay, so now we'll talk about answering customers with language barriers. Take for instance, customers. Let's say customers who want to be communicated to in a local dialect or in a foreign dialect. If it's a foreign dialect, let's say it's a foreign customer, then of course, if foreign customers, the organization themselves know when they begin to have international customers, they prepare for. Of course, have opportunities where we have French section and as well as Spanish section of customer service. So those sections were created for people to communicate with the French customers and to also communicate with Spanish customers. So the auction will take care of that. That's not for you as representative to handle. But now, when it comes to local dialects, and let's say as a representative, you are not good with that local dialect. If you are the only representative in that place, then you find a way to communicate with such a person. Possibly, maybe if there's any other person within the team who understands that local dialect, you can now go get such a person to assist you communicate with. But if we have a bigger number, let's say I mean the one you be posted to, let's say we have up to 3 or 4 representatives. Maybe one person there understands that particular language, so they can help with that and communicate with that customer. So I think that would solve such issue. Emmy, I think I have answered your question on that. Then um, Ebirari said something. Says what's the importance of customer recovery? We just talked about that earlier. So I don't expect you to ask such question. So if customers are not recovered, like when we talked earlier, that customers are going to be dormant accounts are going to be assigned to you to recover them. So they are dormant in the first instance. It means that they are not making profit. The auction is not making profit. So the importance of customer recovery is what profitability in a nutshell. Okay, let's go ahead to do that. It says, how do we initiate recovery approach? Please refer. You can go back and rewatch the video. I'm not going to we are done. We're about to get to the next person. If you want me to start going back to talk about the recovery approach, I just talked about the details about the recovery approach uh, from the slide. They are all there. So maybe just find some time and rewatch some portions of this training. It will help you. At least maybe you could some spots where maybe you stepped out. Maybe you could just get that. I'm talking to Grace Abayomi now. So please, maybe you missed that part where I talked about it. It's just there. I made list of. I spoke on some things that the recovery approach that could be done. There's questions that are asked and the rest of that. The essence of recovery in itself that we care. We do not just about your money, but we care. We can trust us to make a difference. Can trust us to. These are things I just talked about more detailedly. Please find some time to go through and we take the training that I will just this particular one now. Okay. Um, wisdom is saying how do we tackle famous customers? Okay. Okay, famous customers in right way. Okay, when they are wrong in that. Okay, because they are famous. I believe maybe you're talking about maybe celebrity customers here. Yeah, making reference to celebrity customers or people with influencers with large following, possibly on social media. I think oftentimes the best way to handle people like this is to deal with them privately, even if they do maybe they come publicly to come and call out. It's better that just there's always an acknowledgement note to that mail, but addressing that particular issue, ask them to send a DM or send them a DM, ask them to open their DM and send them a DM directly. So you don't address their issue, even though they call that publicly, but you don't address their issue publicly, right? So that's one of the best way to address such issues on that. Even though they are wrong in that particular case, it's very much important that if based on their person or whatever it is, or the notion that they have put out, that's what you're going to do a rejoinder, right? That's the one you're bringing out. You're going to more like you are doing a rejoinder to what they have said earlier, but you're not going to ask them you're going to ask them to open their DM so that you can continue having a conversation. Ask them to contact directly, and so the issue can be resolved. Sometimes we see this happening out on social platforms. An example is the X and the rest of that. Okay, I think that's that. So what's I think Tamka is saying, what's the difference between customer experience and customer perception? Okay, the customer's experience practically forms their perception about the brand. Now, when we talked about the customer's experience, we talked about that this is the interaction with interaction of a customer and a brand forms their experience, right? And these things, the experience of the customer creates an impression, and that impression is what forms their perception about the brand. So if they've had a terrible experience over time, their perception about that brand will change, even though if it was good in the first instance, it becomes negative. It turns into the negative in the first instance. I used a network service provider as an example, so I don't want us to go back into all this. So I made mention of that, saying even if I've been having great experience in the first instance, once I get a negative one, once I get another a negative experience consistently, my positive impression or perception about that brand, that they are excellent, they are great, will begin to change, right? So customer recovery comes in. This is where the retention team now comes in to correct that, to return back that negative impression that I'm now beginning to create now, that is now beginning to create in my mind about that brand, to return it back to say, this is not how we are. We don't this is not how we are. We are excellent. Like this particular service disruption is just something that is temporary. It will pass, right? That's what we are saying earlier. So maybe you can just find time to retake all that we just set us far in this session. Okay, please, I'll just be ending this session right away. Another one is coming up right away. I think that's the last one for today. Is coming up right in a few minutes. Right, but I might just have to delay it in 5 minutes so that I can just take some time and for it. And so I'll be starting that right away immediately, so we can just end the session for today and we know that we are done. These are trainings that we had for the week. Okay, so that's done. That said, thank you so much for participating, and see you in the next training.